The global D&I conversation has also been about networks. This very word has been very important in this debate. So next up, we have how networks help create an inclusive culture in a global organization. Here to talk to you about it, please welcome Monika Lees, Talent Development and Learning Enablement Project Manager, ERG Leader at State Street. Welcome, Monika. Hello.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Welcome. And we have Dariusz, Krupa, Inclusion, Diversity and Equity Expert, also at State Street. Welcome.
Welcome. Hello, Łukasz. Hello, everyone.
Hi. Thank you for joining. To start with, we've had a lot about the impact of the past 2 years, especially less than 2 years, but still on redefining the cultures we exist, operate and function in within organizations. Do you think it's a fact, or is it just good marketing or wishful thinking? Who would like to start?
I can start. So I think it's not just the marketing or just wishful thinking, because on various occasions, including Changemakers Conferences in recent years, we have brought forward many times that inclusive culture is no longer a desirable option, but something that is critical to have. And it is enough to follow the research conducted among university graduates concerning the factors determining employment, because it is where we can see a very clear shift from wage to non-wage factors. And the most frequently mentioned is respect. So organization must build a culture that guarantees this respect, but also trust, transparency, collaboration, and many other elements typical for inclusive culture. For me, the message of this research is very clear. Companies' priority should be put on the people. So organizations cannot ignore this voice, but they also cannot stop at marketing if they do not want to lose their talents, because in fact, it is not just about attracting candidates. We know that inclusive culture brings higher productivity, higher morale, creativity, innovation. One of the research showed even that just diversity of thinking enhances innovation by about 20% and reduces risk by up to 30%, which is 30%. And these are the reasons why companies cannot afford to fail to develop activities in the area of inclusion diversity. Companies simply do not have a choice today, and they have to listen to the voice of the employees who expect to do their business in a friendly workplaces, free from discrimination, where they can develop the full potential and fully express their identities.
Dariusz, what you're saying, it sounds to me, what you're saying sounds to me is one of those few scenarios where not having a choice is actually a positive development, because what used to be soft factors, and quite few of them, in fact, are now a broad field that has sort of risen in its sense of priority attached to it. Monika, would you like to comment or add to this first question?
I would admit that Darek mentioned a very important aspect, that diversity, equality and inclusion is just a fact, because it's all about us. It's about people. And it's about a real life. Having in mind we are entering the employer's doors with all the, let's call it, luggage of the private life. We really want to feel included, valued and supported when needed by the workplace, including employer, but also our colleagues. It's really impossible to be at work and be only the employee at this moment. We still have somehow back of our head our other aspects of daily life. For example, being a woman in the workplace, clashing with stereotypes, or working mother, but also having disabilities or mental disorders. All of those aspects make us need to find a support and understanding in the workplace. And such may be, from my perspective, the crucial to engage us so deeply to stay with the employer for longer.
Monika, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you already have quite an elaborate employee resource group structure within State Street. Is that correct? Or do you wish a lot more were happening on that front?
As it's said, it's always room for improvement, but indeed, the Working Parents Club I run, now it's almost 7 years. It's a really great place to support the D&I agenda within State Street Bank Poland.
Mm-hmm. Dariusz, would you like to comment on the current ERG structure within State Street?
Yeah, I would say this. I'm pleased to represent a company that actually has a fairly well developed, I would say, ERG structure, because we have a global inclusion, diversity, equity team, which is led by a chief diversity officer, where we support more than 24 networks globally with more than, I believe, 100 chapters currently, which and all of them are established and run by employees. We have also introduced an appropriate organizational structure of networks, including also country inclusion diversity leaders, executive sponsors who facilitate networks activities and also improve the communication, like maybe this is even more important, between ERGs and higher management. Each network also has to set its own strategy based on the strategy framework we use for ERGs. And this is all to make sure that their activities link networks to business goals, but also corporate initiatives, but also connect them to community outreach, because we are stronger together.
Mm-hmm.
As
on top of what Darek said, if I may add, yes. I would like to highlight that ERGs within State Street are pure bottom-up initiatives undertaken by our employees, which definitely brings a huge value added to the D&I agenda in our organization. And I really believe that is a perfect merger of different perspectives and capabilities. So I would say we are diverse also in that aspect.
And you mentioned you've been in one particular ERG for 7 years, haven't you? So that speaks for itself. Let's talk about how networks help actually create an inclusive culture, because it sounds very abstract in its own right, and is obviously good if some of those ERGs start as bottom-up instead of top-down initiatives. But tell us a little bit more about how such networks contribute to inclusive culture building.
For sure. Definitely. I feel called to answer that. So yeah, as an ERG leader, I feel my role, the ERG role, as a voice of our people hired in the organization. The company may have its own D&I strategy and some ideas how to implement that. But these are the ERGs that can show the, I would say, true need of employees, as each organization is somehow in respect to unique due to the employment structure, industry, or just that operates in a different areas. So the location where the ERG is based, in case of such global company like State Street Bank, has indisputable impact.
But is it a significant impact in the sense that it's really helping shape the company culture?
I would say to spread that across a local office, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Dariusz?
Yeah, I fully agree. As Monika said a moment ago, the activities of network are bottom up, and this is what their nature should be, because culture is based on values. So it is important that all employees share these values, and this will not work if it's forced in some way at the central level. At the central level, together with my team, I can make sure that we have appropriate practices, standards, and policies in place. But they will never work if employees do not identify with these solutions or understand the importance or they understand the need of the implementation. Otherwise, it will be nothing more than just another policy that must be followed. And for me, this is where employee networks have a key role to play, because their message will have great power and authenticity, because also it is pretty often supported by individual example. And just look at who is creating the networks. There are people who feel, and they feel it's often from very personal reasons, the need to engage in activities for their own community, for their own group. And I will never win against the strength of the message. And also, I would never be able to achieve such a scale of inclusion diversity activities alone or even with my team. So thanks to networks, we can be sure that inclusion diversity will not be limited only to procedures or the aforementioned marketing or demographic data, such as those related to gender representation, but will be manifested in constant and authentic actions undertaken by employees themselves.
Dariusz, speaking of representation, can we or should we even talk about one universal culture shared by all employees? Because the fact itself that you have diverse ERGs across different cultures and geographies is sort of contradicts that approach. So it's a careful balancing act, isn't it?
It is indeed. We know that.
And how? Just to make this question more specific, how important are those local nuances that you're dealing with on the cultural front?
Nuances definitely have an impact, but if we talk about the culture, from the perspective of my team, and I work for EMEA team, which supports over 40 networks in 9 European countries, I would say that we all share the same values and follow the same goals, because everyone wants to be accepted, everybody wants to be respected or treated equally, and these are universal values. However, needs will differ, and or they will be differently emphasized depending on the region. Because let's say Pride Network in London will be conducting different activities than Pride Network in Krakow, because it functions in a completely different environment. So legislation and the needs of LGBT+ community will be different there. And networks, thanks of that they are close to employees, and thanks of this part, we can respond better to their needs, taking into account also these local determinants.
Yeah, if I may add, I feel that this is similar as for the working parents coming back to work in Poland versus in the United States or Netherlands. They may have some similar fears or doubts, but definitely, according to local labor law, they will get totally different support from the government and other institutions. So it is so important that ERG, to understand that ERG understands the need to adapt the global programs, policies offered by the employer to the local realities. So it's so important to create such a space for the cooperation of the D&I team, like Darek's team, and ERGs, like, for example, working parents that I have a pleasure to be head of. So this is that makes people feel engaged and valued locally as well.
Monika, Dariusz, much as we're enjoying this conversation, believe it or not, but we have less than a minute left. So my quick last question to you both would be, what would you recommend to those who haven't started their journey into networks yet?
So let me start for the ERG. Thank you, Darek. The voice for the ERG members. Go for it. It's a really great opportunity to change the world, the workplace you are in, to be even more inclusive and supportive for you. Additionally, the activity within the ERG is an ideal opportunity for both individual and professional development. So you can practice a lot in that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Monika. Dariusz?
When it comes to companies, I would recommend just taking this advantage and introducing, employee networks to the I&D strategy and I&D structure. And I think they would be really surprised how much potential can be found in the employees.
That in itself should be a great encouragement to start, should it not? Thank you very much. Monika Lies, Talent Development and Learning Enablement Project Manager, ERG Leader at State Street. Dariusz Krupa, Inclusion, Diversity and Equity Expert, also State Street. Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you with us.